Hello everyone and welcome back to Law Statistics. Today's presentation is based on the topic Muslim Law Part 6. Doctrine of Preemption. The right of preemption is in the nature of an easement and is annexed to the land under Muslim law. The right comes into existence on the sale of adjacent property. The right to preemption is not a right to repurchase, either from the vendor or from the vendee, but is simply a right of substitution, entitling the preemptor by reason of a legal incident to which the sale itself was subject to stand in the shoes of the vendee in respect of the rights and obligations arising from the sale. It is rather anomalous that the right of preemption is not recognized in Madras. The reason given by the Madras High Court for refusing to recognize the right of preemption amongst Muslims is that it places a restriction on the liberty of a person to transfer property and is therefore opposed to justice, equity, and good conscience. In the case of Ibrahim versus Munimir Uddin, the case of 1870, now, is the object of preemption. The object of the rule of preemption is to prevent the inconvenience which may result to families and communities from the introduction of disagreeable stranger or co-partner or near neighbor. Preemption by contract. The right of preemption may also be created by contract. In construing the term of such a contract, the court will give effect to the intention of the parties as expressed therein. In the absence of a contract to the contrary, it will be presumed that a contract for preemption will be governed by the Hanafi law and all the formalities are to be observed before a valid claim for preemption can be made. Where a right of preemption is based on a contract, a Muslim co-sharer is entitled to preemption even against a Hindu purchaser. It was held in the case of Sitaram vs. Chiol Hassan, 1921 case. To whom it is applied, the doctrine of preemption is applicable to all Muslims in general, applicability to Hindus as well. The law of preemption is applied to Hindus also, by legislation as in the Punjab and Oudh, where there are general territorial enactments, by custom as in Bihar and certain parts of Gujarat, or when there is a contract between the parties that the law should apply. In the Mofussil of Bombay under Regulation 4th of 1821, which does not mention preemption or any other topic of Muslim law as expressly applicable to the Muslims, the law of preemption can be applicable on the principles of justice, equity, and good conscience, or on the ground of custom, but it was held in the case of Mahmud Beg, Amni Beg, and another versus Narayan Meghaji Patel and others, the 1961 case. The preemption is opposed to justice, equity, and good conscience, so it can apply only on the ground of custom. Who can claim preemption? According to the Mohammedan law, the right of preemption appertains to the following person: a Shafi Sharik, that is co-sharer or partner in the property sold. Second is the Shafi e Khalid, that is a partner in the amenities and appendages of the property. These are persons connected with the property sold either as holders of dominant or servient heritages or as sharing a common right. A Shafi'izar, that is an owner of neighboring immovable property. The right of preemption on the ground of vicinage does not extend to states of large magnitude such as villages, zamindaris, but it is confined to houses, gardens, and also small parcels of the land. Moving ahead, Shia law. By Shia law, the only person entitled to the right of preemption are co-sharers, and that too if the number of co-sharers does not exceed 2. Sect of either party, how far material. If both the vendor and the preemptor belong to the same school, being either Sunnis or Shias, the law of that school applies, the law of the vendee being always immaterial. According to the Allahabad High Court, when one of them is a Shia, the Shia law will apply. According to the Calcutta High Court, the law of the preemptor prevails in the case of vendor and the preemptor do not belong to the same school of Muslim law. Thus, if the vendor is a Sunni and the preemptor is a Shia, then according to the Allahabad High Court, the right of preemption is to be determined by the Shia law. Now is the constitutional validity of preemption. It has been held by the High Courts of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Hyderabad that preemption on the ground of vicinage is void after 26 January 1950 as it imposes an unreasonable restriction on the fundamental right guaranteed under Article 19 Clause 1 of the Constitution. However, preemption as between co-sharer and owners of dominant and servient heritages is saved by Article 15 Clause 5 of the Constitution. The Bombay, Allahabad, and Patna High Courts have, however, taken a different view and upheld the constitutional validity of preemption by all the three classes of person mentioned above. However, the Supreme Court has now approved the view taken by the Rajasthan High Court. The Supreme Court has observed that the right of preemption is an incident of property and attaches to the land itself. It was held in the case of Udh Singh versus Gajadhar Jaipuria in the case of 1954. In the above case, the Supreme Court held that where the right of preemption rests upon custom, it becomes the lex loci or the law of the place, and the right of preemption attaches to the properties situated in that place. The Allahabad High Court has also observed in the Jagmohan Prasad versus B. Singh, where we have the existence of a right of preemption without specifying how the right is to be enforced or excised, or without laying down the awful particulars of that custom, the presumption is that the right of preemption is in accordance with the rights allowed by Mohammedan law. This view has been laid down in a number of cases. These cases have also been followed in subsequent cases. In order that a claim for preemption should be held to be valid, no particular formula is necessary, provided the claim is unequivocally asserted. But under the Sunni law, certain formalities are strict to be observed. No person is entitled to a right of preemption unless he or his manager or any other person previously authorized by him in his behalf has made the following three demands. First is the talab-e-muwasibat, that is immediate demand or demand of jumping, which is not effective unless it is followed by formal claim by talab-e-shad. Talab-e-mufazat is an announcement by one entitled to preempt of his intention of making the claim. This announcement is to be made immediately on his receiving information of the sale, but after and not before the sale is completed. Moving ahead, talab-e-ishad, that is demand with invocation of witnesses. The talab-e-mufasibat is of no effect unless it is followed by a formal claim which is called talab-e-ishad, in which the preemptor must affirm his intention to assert his right of preemption, referring expressly to his having made the demand of jumping, and make a formal demand either in the presence of the buyer or the seller or on the premises which are subject of sale, and also in the presence of at least two witnesses specially called to bear witness to this demand. Any unreasonable delay in making the second demand will defeat the preemptor right. The Mohammedan law relating to demand before filing a suit of preemption is of highly technical nature. The suit for preemption, thus talab-e-mufazat, zibat is the first demand and talab-e-ishad is the second demand. The third formality consists of the institution of the suit for preemption. Both the talabs are conditions precedent to the exercise of the right of preemption. The talab-e-mufasibat should be made as soon as the fact of the sale is known to the claimant. Any reasonable or unnecessary delay will be construed as an election not to be preempted. Also, it was held in the case of Muhammad Rafi versus Khalilur Rahman and another, the case of 1972 Supreme Court. Now is the tender of price not essential. It is not necessary to the validity of a claim of preemption that the preemptor should tender the price at the time of talab-e-ishad suit. The third formality is the institution of a suit for preemption. Acknowledgement of paternity. Legitimacy is a status which results from certain facts, but legitimating is a process which creates a status which did not exist before. In a proper sense, there is no legitimation under Muslim law. In fact, an acknowledgement is a declaration of legitimacy and it does not refer to legitimation. Hence, an illegitimate cannot be made legitimate under Muslim law. Legitimation per subsequent matrimonium, legitimation by subsequent marriage of the parents of the child of Roman law is not known to Muslim law. Iqrar. But Muslim law recognizes Iqrar, acknowledgement of paternity. It has three incidents: unknown paternity, child must not be illegitimate, there must be nothing to rebut presumption, unknown paternity, that is, if the paternity of the child is not certain. The leading case of Muhammad Allahabad versus Muhammad Ismail, a claiming to the eldest son of G, brought a suit against Ismail and his three sisters for the rights in certain villages. Ismail and his three sisters were born to Moti Begum after her marriage to G. But A was born to her at a time when it was unknown who the father of A was. G during his lifetime had acknowledged A as his legitimate son. It was held that there was no proof of paternity of A, that it was not proved that A was by illicit intercourse, therefore it was held that A was legitimate and he had right to inherit. It must not be illegitimate. According to Muslim law, there is no legitimation, hence an illegitimate son cannot be acknowledged to make him legitimate. That there was no proof of paternity. D. It was not proved that A was by illicit intercourse. Therefore, it was held that A was legitimate and he had right to inherit. It must not be illegitimate. According to Muslim law, there is no legitimation. Hence, an illegitimate son cannot be acknowledged to make him legitimate. The principles of Roman law relating to birth per subsequent matrimonial are not applicable. The leading case is Sadiq Hussain versus Hasim Ali. In the case of Privy Council held that acknowledgement by the Muslim father of the child as his son is substantive evidence relating to the legitimacy and hence the child was legitimate. There must be nothing to rebut the presumption of paternity. The parties must be such as to be so related as father, wife, and child in conformity with the presumption of paternity. Marriage must be possible between the father and mother of the child. The person acknowledged must not be the child of an illicit intercourse, and there must be not any disclaim or repudiation by the father. The leading case is the Habibur Rahman Chaudhry versus Aitaf Chaudhry. A was a daughter son of the Nawab, and one person H, son of Cohen, sued A and claimed that the Nawab had married Cohen. Hence, he claimed his share as son. Held neither marriage nor acknowledgement was proved and hence A failed. Acknowledgement may be express or implied. Now is the principle of the doctrine of legitimacy by acknowledgement. This is special mode prescribed by Mohammedan law for establishing the legitimacy of a child and the marriage of its mother. Since a marriage among Muslims may be constituted without any ceremony, the existence of the marriage in a particular case may be an open question. If no direct proof of such marriage is available, indirect proof may be relied upon. Acknowledgement of legitimacy of a child is one of the kind of indirect proof. Thus, under certain conditions, if a Muslim acknowledges a child to be his legitimate child, the paternity of that child is established in him. But the doctrine applies only to cases where the fact of an alleged marriage is an uncertainty. It cannot be availed of to legitimize a child who is known to be illegitimate. The doctrine of legitimacy by acknowledgement proceeds entirely upon an presumption of legitimacy and establishment of legitimacy by the force of such acknowledgement. That's all for today's presentation. Thank you and have a great day ahead.